Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for joining me. My name is Graylan Stewart. I'm a virtual wholesaler and entrepreneur. Now, this is the continuation. So this is video 2 of 3 of my free wholesale and real estate training, okay? So if you haven't watched the first video, go ahead and watch that first. Here it is right here, so you can click on that to watch it first. But if you've already watched it, yes, this is video 2 of 3. We're gonna get into the actual step-by-step on how to wholesale real estate, okay? What's up, guys? All right, so let's go ahead and get into the training. So this is the free wholesaling real estate training, video 2 of 3, okay? So let's go ahead. So this is an X-Mind map, so hopefully you can follow along. I think these are a little bit easier to visualize and see and kind of go as I go, okay? So let's do a quick refresher on wholesaling real estate, okay? So there's 3 exit strategies on flipping houses, all right? So we are talking about wholesaling, hoteling, and retailing, okay? Now, wholesaling real estate is exactly what we talked about, where you can get a contract with a seller and you find a buyer and then you wholesale that property to the buyer, okay? Now, hoteling is a little different. You're closing on the property and selling it on the MLS as is. And then retail is a given. You're rehabbing that property to rent or to fix and flip, okay? Now, the assignment, we talked about that, the seller, wholesaler, and the buyer, okay? And the double close is when you have a seller, wholesaler, and then the money, and then a buyer, okay? And the reason we do double closes is simply to hide your fee. So the only reason you would want to hide your fee is because sometimes buyers just can't get over the fact that you're making a lot of money on a deal. So just to keep it safe, and some buyers, they'll all tell you that they don't care. But in reality, when they see that you're making $30,000 or $20,000, sometimes buyers get offended by that because they're actually given the risk, taking all the risk and putting the money into it and maybe making 40 or 50,000. And if you're making 30, just wholesaling it to them, sometimes they don't like that too much. So that's why we double close, okay? Otherwise, just assignments are fine, all right? So let's go ahead and get through this. So starting the process to find deals, okay, is really step 1. It's marketing, because without bringing in leads, you have nothing to work with, okay? So first, we have to establish want versus need, all right? So how do we do that? Does a seller want to sell or do they need to sell? There is a big difference, and you'll find that out right here, okay? So when they want to sell, the seller that wants to sell is typically a seller that doesn't have a distress. They just want to sell their house. That's it, okay? They'll always be wanting retail or just shy of retail, if not, okay? And they typically just list their house with a realtor. That's just what they do because they want to sell and they usually want top dollar. Now, they are not the type of person that wants or needs our help, typically, okay? Not always, but typically that's just the way it goes, okay? Just remember, we're in the business of solving problems, those win-win situations that I talked about, okay? Because if you can't solve a problem, then you probably can't do anything. So if they just want to sell, unless you're a realtor, you can't solve their problem. And in this case, we are wholesalers looking to solve problems, okay? So therefore, we need sellers that actually need to sell, okay? Not just want. Now, they are going to want to sell that house, but they have to need to sell it, okay? So let's go over that. Now, there's at least 13 different reasons a seller would actually need to sell. But going up here, a seller that needs to sell is a seller who truly is motivated and needs help right now or will need help in the near future, okay? So let's go over what I've got in here. So need to sell now, okay? Set the appointment and go see the property, okay? Whether you're doing this over the phone or you're going in face-to-face. If they need to sell now, you do whatever you can to get that appointment right away. So if you're already on the phone with them, keep them on the phone and get all the information that you need and get that deal, okay? So if they need to sell in the future, obviously, follow-up is key. I've talked about that many times over throughout a bunch of my videos, because without follow-up, you're really dead in the water. You will not be successful if you can't learn to follow up. I promise you that right now. So follow up is key. Trust me. We have to be fight. We have to fight. Literally fight to be top of mind for these sellers. So how do we fight to do that? Obviously, it's through marketing. We have to stay in front of them. Whether that's marketing through paid advertising of some sort, to be omnipresent, through Facebook or Google or whatever it is, or is that you physically picking up a phone and calling them or texting them and those kind of things. Okay, so let's go over these 13 reasons why someone would need to sell. Now there could be more, but these are just the 13 that I have down here. Okay, so obviously if they are deceased, they're going to need to sell. Okay, so when there's a dead person involved and they're deceased, there's usually probate or they inherited the property. Okay, now probate, most wholesalers do probate wrong, and let me tell you why. Because if you think about it, direct mail versus a personal relationship, what would you rather have? So let's just think about this real quick. So you just lost a family member and you got a direct mail postcard saying, hey, yeah, basically, we know that your family member died. Sorry about that, but hey, will you sell me their house? That's the wrong way to go about it. Or texting someone, right after that happened, or cold calling them, or whatever it is. That's really wrong. But what if you had a personal relationship with a probate attorney, and or something like that? That's a little bit easier, a little less intrusive, those kind of things. So that's just something to think about as we go. But obviously, a deceased person, it's either going to be probate or someone's going to inherit that property. So those are great people that would actually need to sell, right? So delinquent property tax is a huge one. It's generally always a free and clear house, which is awesome. And they could lose their house at the tax sale. So how do I know that it's generally free and clear? So if you think about it, if you have a mortgage, which most people probably do watching this, but if you don't, I'll let you know. I'll inform you. So when you have a mortgage, typically you escrow your taxes and your insurance through the mortgage. Okay, so that way you make one payment to the bank, but that's going to include the mortgage, your insurance, and your taxes. Is typically how that's done. Okay, so the reason that people end up losing their house to tax sale is because they don't have anything escrowed through a mortgage company. So there's no one to really hold them accountable. So it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, if you will. So those are generally free and clear because there's nothing to escrow. They're not making any payments. So if you're not making, monthly payments on your taxes or on your insurance, typically they don't pay them at all a lot of times, and that's why they end up in delinquent property tax situations. Okay, so obviously if you're getting divorced, you're going to need to sell, right? They can't afford it on one income, or they need to get their ex off the mortgage. Nevertheless, almost every time if someone's going through a divorce, they're going to need to sell their property. Okay, so that's a great list that you could purchase out there. Okay, now if someone owns a property out of state, that's what we call absentee owners, and I've done a video on actually how to pull an absentee owner list off of PropStream. So I do have an affiliate link down below if you want to click on that to check it out. You can, because that's actually how you find absentee owners. And all that means is it's just an owner that doesn't live there. Okay, it doesn't even necessarily have to be out of state. Anyways, behind on mortgage payment, obviously, if they're in pre-foreclosure, not already foreclosed, because if they're already foreclosed, it's kind of too late as a wholesaler, at least, to help them out. But if they're in pre-foreclosures, meaning they're getting notifications from their bank that they've got a certain amount of days, before they're going to sell the house or whatever it is, take it back over. Obviously, those people are pretty motivated and they actually need to sell, right? So if you own a property free and clear, obviously that's not really a big motivation, but you just need to combine that with another list. Sometimes we call that list stacking. Owning a property free and clear is awesome because they have equity, which is what you need when you're wholesaling real estate. You have to have equity to do a traditional wholesaling real estate deal, okay? But, keep in mind you have to combine that with another list. So if someone loses their job, obviously there's motivation there, and they're going to need to sell. Because typically, if you lose your job, you can't make payments. If you can't make payments, bank's going to take your house, right? So if you're being relocated, that's a given. They're going to want to avoid two mortgages, right? If they're moving across state or across town or across country, whatever the case, they don't want two mortgages. Bankruptcy is self-explanatory. Obviously, if they're filing bankruptcy, they need to sell ASAP. Okay. If it's a vacant house, those are great and they're very easy to spot. But vacant houses are the best because they're easy to show. It's typically easy to purchase because those people need to sell. They may not know they need to sell a lot of times till they think about it or till you inform them. But typically, these houses are easy to spot, and here's how. They're a lot of times boarded up where they've got overgrown lawn and landscape. They've got notes on the doors or windows or notices from the city, different things like that. Or overstuffed mailboxes is a good telltale. Or you can just tell that it's in dire need of repairs compared to nearby houses. Sometimes they'll have even tarps on the roof and things like that. So vacant houses are typically super easy to spot. Now, landlords, why would a landlord need to sell? Here's why. Some of the landlords are tired, and I've talked about this tired list. Tired landlord list. They're just sick of landlording, or their tenants are not paying, or maybe they're an accidental landlord. So the people that were lucky enough to afford, when they got relocated, they weren't able to sell their house, so they just kept paying for their other house and found a renter, to help them pay that payment. But they never wanted to be a landlord, so I call those accidental landlords. So these people are truly motivated typically, okay? Fire damaged house, obviously, they're going to need to sell because the house is damaged. And they usually sell those really cheap because they got the insurance money already. So anything they get from a wholesaler is just extra because they're usually getting all their money back from insurance, okay? So if an owner has an illness, they typically need to sell because they've got medical bills and things like that. Or maybe they're going into a nursing home. So this is a good tip here. If you can build relationships with nursing homes, that could really help you as well. If you have different managers that you can kind of befriend at these nursing homes in your local area, that could go a long way because they a lot of times know of houses. Those houses help them out because those are how these people actually pay for their services. So anyway, so who do you know? That's really the bottom line. It's always good when you first get started with personal relationships because you might have somebody in your circle that needs to sell. So who do you know that's going through a divorce or is an accidental landlord, or maybe they're sick, or maybe they have a vacant house or going through bankruptcy, or they recently got relocated, or maybe they lost their job. Any of these situations here, many times someone. So just kind of think of that in the back of your mind. Oftentimes that can be your first deal, just people in your inner circle, okay? And they can help you get warm intros. That's always great. If your mom has a friend that has a vacant house and it's just a headache to them, have your mom introduce you to that friend. And that's how you can get going right there, okay? So obviously, these are the types of people that we're looking for as real estate investors and as wholesalers in general. That's how you get discounted off-market properties, okay? You kind of search for these 13 main groups of people, okay? All right, so let's move on. So what do you do when you actually find these deals? Let's go over that. So obviously, you're going to have to negotiate with sellers, okay? So let's go over how to negotiate. Obviously, you might want a seller script, a script of some sort. When I first started, obviously I didn't have a script, and you don't either. And I will offer you a free script, a script that made me hundreds of thousands of dollars that I used in my everyday business. So how did I get that script? The way I did it was I just compiled a bunch of other people's scripts that I kind of knew and gained over time, or even Googled some, and I just kind of made my own. So what made sense to me, and it worked really well. So if you want my script, I'll give it to you for free. So just look in the comments or send me a DM or whatever it is. But anyway, so when you're negotiating with a seller, obviously there's some main things that we have to get from these people. We got to get their motivation. Okay, that's the main key. Like they're probably going to fall into one of those 13 categories we just discussed. We got to get the condition of the house. Their timeline is important. The price we want to get out of them, and then be able to listen more than we talk. Okay, so gaining motivation. Establish if they want or they need to sell. Okay, if they truly need to sell, let's get it going. Okay, so get into the condition. Always remember the major things and the cosmetic things. But this is what we do in our business. Our acquisition managers are really good at finding these 5 major things, because ultimately the condition of the house is going to tell you how much you can pay for it. Okay, and you don't want just the condition, but you want the age of these major things. Okay. So these major things on every house, you need to know the foundation, the HVAC, the roof, the electrical, and the plumbing. Okay, let's go over that a little bit. So foundation, there's 2 different types of foundation. There's slab, where it's just cement, and then there's pier and beam, to where you have crawl spaces under the house. And sometimes there's a combination of both of those. But you want to know, is the foundation sound? Is there any cracks or crevices or slopes in the flooring or anything like that? Okay, you want to ask those questions, detailed questions, and if there is, how long has it been like that? Okay, now HVAC, that's your heat and air system. Do they have central heat and air, or are they using gas heaters on the wall? Are they using air conditioning window units? What is it? How old is it? On top of that, okay. Now the roof, what type of roof is it? And how old is it? When was the last time it was replaced? They might say, oh, yeah, it's in perfect condition and it's great. Okay, that's cool, and that may be true. But if it's 20 years old, it's probably on its last leg. So that's why age is also important. Now, the electrical and plumbing is also important. If it's an older house, a lot of times flippers have to replace the electrical and plumbing just to bring it up to code, okay? Because if they're flipping the house, there's obviously going to be inspections. And sometimes those older electrical panels and things like that just won't pass inspection. And the plumbing is the same way. It could be old and corroded. Some of those older style things. New stuff is like PEX plumbing is what is pretty much needed these days. So, anyways, now the cosmetic things that you want to look for. A good question to ask is, has there been any updates within the last 5 years, and then specifically any updates to the kitchen or the bathrooms? Okay, kitchens, now you're looking for cabinets and countertops is the main things. Okay, obviously the flooring, in the bathrooms, like I already mentioned. Do the ceilings leak anywhere? Are there holes in the walls or doors? Is there any missing trim? Anything like that? Any kind of condition cosmetically that you can gather will greatly help you. Now, keep in mind, you're kind of fact finding. You're gathering all this information here, because that's going to give you ammo on what your offer is. Because remember, we're giving offers based on the condition of the property. Okay, so the next thing we need is timeline. And a good question to ask is, when they're actually looking to sell, a week, a month, a couple months. It just gives you an idea of motivation. If they say, yeah, we might sell in 6 months, and they're probably not super motivated right now. But if they're like, yeah, we got to sell this ASAP because we got this situation. So then they're more motivated, okay? So that just kind of helps you with that motivation piece. Now, price, obviously, do your best to have them tell you the price, okay? We always want to try to get price out of people if possible, but it's not always possible, and that's okay. Just do your best, and if you can get it, great. Here's an example. If I were to pay cash, pay all closing costs, and you choose the closing date, what's the best price you could do? Sometimes they might say, well, you're calling me, you tell me or whatever. Sometimes they won't do it. And most of the time I'll tell you that they're not going to give you the price. But, if you can get it out of them, great. If you can't, just remember you want to anchor low on that price after you gather all this information, okay? So when you're fact finding and doing all this, you want to listen for sure 80 to 90% of the time and take notes. Okay, you have to take notes, whether you're on a tablet or you have a system to notate this in. Taking notes is key, because you're not going to remember every conversation after you have a bunch of leads, okay? So you got to keep asking these open-ended questions, though. Just avoid the yes and no answers. You know, is your house in great shape? Yes. You know what I mean? That's not a good answer. So, a lot of times I'll just be like, okay, tell me about your house, and they'll just start spilling it out. Okay, tell me more, or tell me more about that specific thing. Okay, something like that. So now let's go over the wholesaling buying and selling formula. Now, these aren't perfect. I've done videos on this as well, but these are going to get you started, okay? Get you a good idea. So the first thing we got to do is establish the ARV, the after repair value, okay? That's the most important thing in this entire process when you're given an offer, okay? Because if you don't know the ARV, you're not going to know what to offer, okay? But you have to know the conditions so that you can kind of guesstimate on how bad it could be. But you got to know the ARV first, okay? So this is the number. This is the number the home would sell for retail, basically, the ARV, okay? Like, what would it sell after a flipper fixes up perfect condition, brings it up to current standards? What would that sell for? Okay, that's really what the ARV is, okay? All fixed up. The buyer paid retail and plans to live there forever. That's what you're looking for, okay? So let's go. Here's what we do. These are where we check these things. Realtor.com, Zillow.com, Redfin.com, and PropStream.com. And again, I do have a PropStream affiliate link in the description. If you're interested in that, I'm not trying to pitch it at all, but if you're going to use it, definitely use my link because it would help you. It does give you a free 7-day trial, but we use PropStream every day, all day. Our acquisitions do, because that's how we find all the buyers, and all the sellers, and we're analyzing these deals, and we're comping them and those kind of things, okay? But we also buy out of our lists from there, so that's really beneficial. But anyways, let's go over this. So this is a training where I want to actually show you, okay? I got a link on here for a particular property for these three right here at least, okay? Realtor.com, let's go to it. So here is this property. The location is 5412 South Rockford Avenue in Oklahoma City, okay? Now look, they're saying that the property is worth $98,000, okay? Is that true? We don't know. But let's click on the other link here. Whoops. Let me go back to the X-Mind map here. Now we're going to click on Zillow. So Zillow shows that same property is worth $71,100. So we've got Realtor.com. It's a big difference, $98,000 to $71,100, okay? So let's go to Redfin. What do they say? Now, Redfin is actually showing 66,000 right there. So we've got 66, we've got 71, and we've got 98. So why are these so different? It's because they all formulate their own processes. They're all different, right? Who knows how they actually do it, but they all have their own methods and madness, right? So what do you do? So what we typically do is we'll take that 98,000, okay? I'm going to get my calculator out while we're doing this, just so we see 98,000, and we're going to look at this 71,100. Whoops, 98,000 plus 71,100 plus we're going to look at this one too, which is the Redfin 66,011. Now we're going to add all three of those up and divide it by 3. So the average of those three is $78,000, okay? 78,370 is the average. Now, is that perfect? No. But that gets you started. So in the conversation, when you're first starting, you don't want to take a lot of time because we can't buy every property, right? You're not going to get every deal under contract. But we have a good idea of, okay, when you're talking to the seller, okay, this property is worth around $78,000. So if they're wanting, 30, 40, 50,000 based on your conversation and the condition, maybe that's a deal. Maybe it's not, okay? But once you dig into it more, you actually start having a better conversation, then you can actually go to, PropStream. That's why I said PropStream is beneficial. But let me go back to Redfin real quick, and I'm just going to copy that address, and I'll just show you in PropStream how we actually do it real quick, okay? So let's go to PropStream. I'm going to have to log in probably. And so once you're logged in, at the very top, well, first you have to click off of the little little thing that they have there. So you put the address in at the top, and it's usually going to show it underneath. You just click on that. Okay. Once it populates, it's going to show you what their idea of what they think the property is worth. Okay. But you want to click on details right here. See where my mouse is right here? Click on details. Now they're saying that the estimated value is 89. Our average was 78. Okay. What's correct? We don't know. Okay. But cash sale was done recently. Now this is a property that we tried to get, a couple of years ago, actually. And we ended up losing this deal. We went to court over it and everything. It was a long story. But here's what you do. Once you get into the property, you go to the comps and nearby listings. Okay. So what you want to do now is you want to click on both, because we want public records. We want MLS as well. So we're going to click on both. Now your date range, you always want to be in the last 3 or 4 months at least. But just do 6. 6 is probably fine. Okay. So we're going to click back. Today is July 25th. So let's just go to, let's just say March or so. I don't know how many months that is. It's a few though, okay? Now you always want to be within a couple of 100 square feet of the property. So our property is right here. It's a 920 square feet. So this is automatically already set for 736 to 1104. I think I did 250 either way or something like that. Nevertheless, let's look at this property. So our address is 5412 South Rockwood. Okay. So that's our subject property that we're looking at right now. Now here's one for 5420 South Rockwood. Now all these green marks right here are cash purchases. Typically is what those are. Okay. So 60,000, 67, 68, and 32. And then there's other deals here that have sold on 5 of 20. So that was a year ago, a little over. This one just sold recently for 40. So anyways, this kind of gives you an idea of what people are paying, okay, for the property. And then these higher ones are typically a flipper. So we can look at these pictures like this one right here. 103,000 is what this sold for. So let's look at these pictures and let's just see, is this a house somebody flipped? It looks pretty nice on the first picture. It's looking really good. They probably staged it potentially. So yeah, it's got hardwoods, got fresh paint. The appliances are great. They've staged it nice. Doesn't have brand new cabinets, but they painted them and it looks good. So this is definitely probably a property that somebody flipped and they got $100,000 out of this deal. Okay. And this property is on the same street. So we know that this is a good comp, but is it comparable as far as square footage? Yes, it is. 991. So this is probably the exact same property almost, you know what I mean? So 103 would actually be a good bet on this deal when we thought it was 78. So 78 is your initial. When you're first talking to a seller, we're going to just guess that it's 78 to 80,000 ARV. But then when you're deeper diving into things and you're really having a good conversation, you know that there's some higher comps in that area. There's 95, there's 103, there's 111, there's another 95. So there's good comps in this neighborhood for sure. And you're already looking at what buyers are paying, 32 to 67 probably in that ballpark. So based on your condition, that's where you might want to be. Okay, so that's how that is. So any guesses on what what we could get for this property? So I would just say, after deep diving into it, maybe the ARV is closer to 100. Okay, so it gives you an idea on what you could actually do. So let's go over the wholesale buying formula now that we know how to establish the ARV. So the buying formula is simple. The quick and dirty, at least, is 0.5. You're basically dividing by 2. Then you're subtracting your wholesale fee, whether that's 5, 10, 20, whatever you want to make. Okay, let's just say it's 5,000 for this example. So your maximum allowable offer, your MAO, your maximum buying price on that particular property would be what? So if you take that 100,000, let's just say it's worth 100, you're dividing by 2, it makes it 50. Then you're subtracting your fee of 5. That means your max offer is $45,000. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So your wholesale selling formula, selling this to an end buyer, would be exactly divide by 2. That's your selling price. Okay, because this one factors in your fee. and this one is what you sell it for, okay? So if your MAO is 45, that means you could market this property for 50 based on this quick and dirty method, and that's kind of it right there. Because your end buyer, who's going to make, you're going to be doing the repairs, is typically going to need to make 25 to 30% profit, and that's different in different markets. And there is a better way to do this, but this is the quick and dirty. So the true way, depending on your market, again, that's why the quick and dirty way is the easy way and the quick way. But depending on your market, some markets you can actually sell things at 80% of ARV. Some of them are 70%. So I'll go over this with you real quick. So let's just say that same $100,000 house, you multiply that out, multiply by 0.75, and that gives you $75,000. Now let's just say during your conversation it only needed $20,000 in work. You can subtract that $20,000 from that 75, and that leaves you with $55,000. And now your fee, again, maybe you want to make $5,000. So your MAO in this situation could be 50 instead of 45. So again, based on your area, you can sell things a little higher or lower. But the quick and dirty, anywhere you're at, is these right here. That's your wholesaling buying formula. That's your wholesaling selling formula, okay? So let's talk about leads versus potential deals now. All right, so a lead. So this is your initial stages to gather possible motivated sellers or distressed houses, whatever the situation is. But you get the seller, you can get their info from the county assessor or a website or a free phone lookup service or something like that. Or you just go knock on the door and find out need versus want, okay? The bottom line is when you have a lead, you're just finding out need versus want. Now, if you find out that they actually need to sell, then maybe that turns into potential deals, okay? You've spoken to the seller and you kind of know their motivation at this point. You confirmed now that they actually need to sell their property and asked if they would consider a cash offer on their property, okay? So there you go. Needs versus wants. Make sure we covered everything in this slide. I think we did. Hopefully all that makes sense. I know that was a lot of information, but it is recorded. So definitely, rewind if you need to and rewatch this. But that is video 2 of 3, guys. So again, if you haven't liked and subscribed already, please do that. I'm dropping gold for you guys, giving you free information. So if y'all haven't done that yet, please help me out and do that. And we will get into ending this one so that we can start that next video. So we'll see you soon.